This presentation is brought to you by the Sanlam Foundation. Hi, I'm Matthew Lester from the Rhodes University Business School. It's amazing to me that 2 or 3 years after graduation, students come back and we say, "How are you?" And they're a bit miserable. Further inquiry shows that they've got a lot of debt. What happened? How did they get themselves into so much trouble? Well, it goes like this. Because most students receive little training in financial planning before they leave university, they think that their career goes as follows. Find a job, graduate, and then start working. So what they do is that they run off, and before they know it, this is what happens to them in the first couple of years. They start working, they find a car, then they upgrade to a faster car, then they find some digs, and then an estate agent persuades them to buy them. And then, of course, we've got all those toys that you've promised yourself during your studying life. So before you know it, you've acquired an iPad, an iPod, an iPhone, before you've even acquired an iron. And then it gets even bigger, because the problem can easily double. We find a spouse. And before we know it, we've got that you're shacked up, knocked up, married or divorced within 10 years of graduation. What do all of those things amount to? Quite simply, it's a whole lot of debt. And what we've got to look at and say is, what are the consequences of debt, and how did we get into such a mess in the first place? Well, the result of landing up in too much debt is that by the time you're 25 to 30 years old, you are flat broke with no escape, plus you've got commitments. It's not just a question of not having enough money in the bank at the end of the month. Now we've got to pay for a car, that's 5 years. Pay for a cell phone, 2 years. And if we want to buy a house, that's a 20-year commitment, and you might get 10 years for murder, but it's a life sentence for kids, spouse, and pets. All of those things driving a student towards the debt trap. One of the frightening concepts of the debt trap is that it can lead to many of the frightening social diseases that we encounter today. We call these the dreaded Ds. That's down and out, depressed, drunk, drugs, dumped, even divorced. All of these things, in one way or another, can be tracked back to debt. So students ask, they say, well, if we had our time again, how should we be doing it? And really what we're saying to people is, take it easy. You've got all your life to stuff it up. But if you go a bit slower, your prospects of success are far increased. So we say, in the first 5 years post-graduation, can you try and run like this? Start working. Then establish your employment package. That's fine, but it's very different from your take-home package. Then manage your risks of living in the new South Africa. Make up a budget. And then decide from the menu of life what you actually want. And there it is. There are a lot of choices. But they don't all have to be done within 5 years. We can take our time about this. So here are some useful tips for starting off. Very soon after graduation, you need to get the help of a financial advisor to help you with your finances, just to get it going, to make sure that you don't make certain fundamental mistakes in the first 1 or 2 years after graduation. Then live for 2 years and consolidate your position. Decide what you're going to do with your life. Enjoy yourself. And think 10 times before you borrow. You don't need anything more than cash cards and internet banking facilities. Living on credit cards is something from our past, and we're going to have to live without those toys. Funnily enough, it's credit cards that have got people into most trouble. Let your earning potential grow. Starting off from graduation, your income should be doubling every 3 years for the next 15 years. The money will come if you let it and you don't get into debt. Remember, your degree stands you good for another 40 years. You've got plenty of time to make it all work for you.